Hey guys, we're out on the porch with the MAME cabinet, and got my rigid trim router here, and we have a slot cutting bit installed on here, and we're going to continue the T-molding groove on the upper left and right top of the cabinet. Don't know if you guys can see in this light, but right up here, this is the upper right of the cabinet. There's a T-molding groove, and when I bought the cabinet, it goes back, I don't know, probably no more than 12 inches, maybe a little less than that, and then it stops. And I want to continue this groove on. I want to go on to the back side of the cabinet. That way when I run my T-mold, it goes all the way across the top. So I have that already set. I fastened it into the router, and to adjust it, I just put it in the current slot that's up there and made sure it felt pretty free in that slot, so we know we've got it adjusted to the right depth. And pretty much it lines up with the slots all the way around the cabinet, you can see there. So if we have to do any more routing, we know that it's going to be in the exact same spot. And I got lucky when I put this black T-molding on, and the 3/4 inch T-molding that I bought fits perfectly on it, and it doesn't overlap, doesn't come too far past the black laminate, and it doesn't stop short of it. It just perfectly covers. So I got lucky with that. And we're also going to use this same bit when we come back to do the top of the control panel. We're going to put some T-molding around that. But right now we're going to set it up, and we're going to do a T-molding groove on each side of the upper part of the cabinet up here. And I'll probably go ahead and set the camera up and let you see me do a little bit of that, if you can see it in the dark. Now the second side went pretty good. That first side I got off just a little bit. And this, by the way, is extremely dusty. I mean, it blows stuff in your hair, in your face, in your eyeballs if you don't have anything on to protect from it. So make sure you wear safety glasses. But anyway, there's the beginning, and it had stopped right in here. But if you can see, you really can't tell where I continued on. This is the new part. All the way to the back of the cabinet. Did a really good job. I had to turn the RPMs down. I had it a little high at first, had it on 4. I got it down on a setting of about 2, and it goes through it like butter. No problem at all. But my other side, don't know if you can see. Let's see if I can get it from here. I see that looks pretty good right there, and then you see I monkeyed up a little bit. I was trying to do it from a standing position, and I was leaning my router so it gets a little wide, and then I kind of corrected it as I got closer to the back. But there's still a place there too, you see. But as long as the majority of it is straight, then it should be okay. It'll hold the rest of it in place. But you live and you learn. I was gonna sit and test it, but this side came out really good. Once the T-molding's covering it, you'll never see my little boo-boo over there. Hey guys, we're installing the blue T-molding that I got for the cabinet, and it's turning out pretty good. I'm cutting it just an inch or so long down here. When I get down to the control panel area, none of this is going to have to be covered because the control panel is going to fit right into this 90-degree cut here. But I'm cutting it just a little long. We're probably going to have to take another inch, maybe a little less, off of this T-molding here when we put the top of the control panel box on. But right now, I've got it run down to the point where the control panel box starts. But once the lid's on it, you know, the top of it, it's going to take off another 3/4 of an inch to an inch or so. And we'll come back and fine tune that, just kind of cut it. But if you see, it's actually looking really good. It's fitting really good. Another little transformation on the cabinet there, changing the way it looks. And sorry, I don't have much light. Let me shine my flashlight there. This is not a baby blue. This is kind of a dark blue. I don't know what it looks like on film here. This is kind of a dark blue. It's close in color to hat blue buttons, but not exactly the same. But we've run it all the way across the top there, and see right there we are a little loose in the back. That's because whenever I started with my router, I leaned my router by accident, and I made that groove just a little wide. But the rest of it across there was one more spot right, I think right in here, that did that, but it fastened on down in there pretty good, so no problems with that. Just at the back corner here, see if we focus up here. Just at the back corner, what I won't have to come back and do is put a little hot melt glue or something in there, or a very thin piece of wood, like a wooden wedge, put in there and push that on down just to hold it. It's just a little loose right there, and it's just because I got the groove a little wide because I leaned my router when I first started that, and you know, I haven't done that before using a slotting cutter, so it took a little trial and error. But the other side came out perfect. Don't know if you can see. Come on, focus up from here. I'm just pushing it down in there. I'm not completely finished yet. And working on that right now. Let me cut that light off. Maybe it'll focus up. You can see this. Yeah, working on this right now. And going around our corners and using a small set of nippers that I have. About to work on this inside corner, and the inside corners are pretty easy. All you do on an inside corner is this little spline back here that's on. Let me show you, see if I can pull it loose. There's a little spline on the back of your T-molding. All you really have to do is find a place that it's going to intersect almost directly in the corner and just snip that spline. Don't cut it out, just snip across it. And once it's cut, it'll make that turn, even if it's up to a 90-degree turn, pretty good. And it'll separate the piece of spline that goes up into this part of the groove and this part a little bit, and there'll be kind of a place right here where there's no spline, but it's fine because there's plenty of the spline that's inside the slot up through here and down through here to hold itself in place. But snipping it right there, just snip across it like you just want to come in and, well, we'll actually see if I can actually do it. I don't know if I can do this with one hand. Well, that's falling loose on me. Well, you get the idea anyway, like I'm saying. You get it all the way up there, and you find the place where it's going to intersect with the corner, and you just take your nippers and you just make a cut straight across that spline. Just cut it, and once it's cut in two, don't cut into the front part where your finished side is that you're going to see. Once you cut it in two, it'll make that bend, and that spline will fasten into the part right up in here and right in there. There won't be any spline right there, but it won't need it. And that's real easy. Now when you're doing the outside corners, you have to kind of cut a little triangle out. And here's a piece that I cut out, shaped a little bit like a triangle. If you can see there, that's a piece of the spline. And cut that out when you're going around an outside corner, and you actually are removing just a little bit of material. And I'll show you on this one what it looks like. Let me pull it loose a little bit right there. Can't get no light in there. I'm going to have to use my flashlight so you can see. But you can see what I nipped out right there. Shaped a little bit like a triangle. And you nip it at an angle like that on either side. And once you do, it'll make that bend around the outside corner, and whenever you close it up, it'll close those two angles together, kind of like that as you're going around the corner. And you could probably cut out just a little less than that if you want to, but that leaves you plenty of room to pull it down in there and press it into the slot and get it in good and tight. And there's so much friction from the spline above and below that little bit nipped out is not going to hurt. It's going to hold itself against the cabinet good and tight. But I'm going to finish doing this side on down to the control panel box, and then down on the left and right side below where the control panel box is, I've got just a little straight piece that has to go down through there, and another one right there. And that's really all the T-molding that has to be on this cabinet besides on the control panel itself. Now I thought about doing it on the back side of the cabinet, but I don't think I'm going to do it. I thought about doing it down through here, but I was afraid of it, maybe not lining up dead perfect, and if any bit of it at all overlapped on the side where the removable panel is, and every time you take the removable panel off, it's going to try to pull the T-molding with it. And I didn't want to cut it so that it's hanging off a little bit too proud of the black veneer, so I said I'm not going to do it. I have seen cabinets that have that T-molding run all around the outside edge of the cabinet, including the back, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave this like it is. So once I finish the rest of the T-molding, I'll let you see what the end result is. And it won't look like a whole lot because we still have several things to do to the cabinet, but I just wanted to go ahead and get that installed since we got our slots cut for that today. And once I come back and do the slot on the control panel top, then I'll take the remaining blue T-molding and wrap around it and show you that at a later date. But right now we'll get back to work on this, and I'll show you the result of it finished here in just a few minutes. Hey, just wanted to show you guys a pretty neat way to cut your T-molding. If you want to get a good cut across it, including the spline, like if you're starting a new run at the edge of a cabinet, anywhere that you need a really good flat cut, and you don't have to worry, like usually you have to take and cut your spline, nip it, and then nip across here where you can see how rounded that is. Now I did that just with some nippers, and that was just a real quick crude cut, and it's kind of rounded just the way the two sides come in. And sometimes you get lucky and it looks really great. It looks straight all the way across, and then you do the spline and the spline doesn't quite match up, or it sticks out a little bit, and then you nip it off and it's a little short. Well, to get a really good straight cut all the way across there, sometimes you can use something like a chisel. And I've got a pretty sharp chisel right here. It's a 1.5 inch chisel. You don't need anything nowhere near this big because the T-molding is only 3/4 of an inch, at least the type that I'm using. You might have some that's a little bigger or a little smaller. But if you have a chisel about this size, or maybe a 1-inch chisel, and it's good and sharp, you can use it. Now this one I've accidentally got a couple little chips in, messing around, throwing it in and out of my tool belt, but it's still good and sharp. And you can lay it on a scrap piece of wood, like this piece of plywood, and kind of press it down so that the spline is flat, and just hold it with your thumb back about an inch or maybe 3/4 of an inch, and then take and find a good straight place right across there. Just kind of eyeball it. You don't really have to measure it, and just press down with your hand, and this a good sharp chisel will cut straight through it. So just press down good and even. And you may have to rock it out and back a little bit, and there, cut that straight away. And you see our cut there? Ended up with a really nice straight cut, and it cut the spline at the same time. Now if you're not careful, you can still get a little bit of a curve, or you can be a little bit crooked there, but that one came out really pretty nice. It might ride up just a little bit right there to that side, but you could always take your nippers and come back and straighten up just a little bit. But most of the time, just in one cut, you get a really good cut across it. And it's not going to help you much if you're trying to go in and out of corners, but when you're starting a new run or you're ending a run, if there's a way you can mark it and you know exactly where you want to cut it, then you can just lay it down on a piece of scrap wood and use a sharp chisel like that. Works pretty good. Alright, we're all finished with the T-molding, except for what's going to go on the top of the control panel. We got both of our front pieces on there, and we got our upper pieces on. They go up and over the top of the cabinet, and it's looking pretty sweet. Not having too much trouble. Luckily the slots that were already pre-cut in the front of this, even though it had ugly gold T-molding in there, they were in very good shape. They had no swelling or anything. Now before I cut that part over there off, when we started this main cabinet, I cut a couple inches off the bottom of the cabinet. There was a little delamination of the plywood, and I think that slot that was a couple inches further down before we chopped that off might have had a little bit of widening or swelling and stuff where you know, either it got a little bit wet or it was just drug around on some concrete floors and kind of messed up the plywood. But now the way I cut it, it's good and tight. The slot is hanging on to the T-molding with no troubles. Shine my light down here and let you get a little bit of a look. I wish I had my spotlight, but my spotlight messed up on me. It actually got turned over and it was on its last legs anyway, but it's kind of broken. I need to buy me a new one. But I'm afraid to use it, even though, I mean, it's just the socket's loose that holds the bulb, and I'm afraid to use it. Afraid it's a fire hazard when I turn that thing on. But T-molding's looking good. Turn your corners. Looks nice. Starting to get a finished look to it. I think the blue goes good with the black. And I think it also goes pretty good with the iron frost paint on the inside. You're going to see just a little bit of this iron frost here. Like whenever we install the monitor bezel on glass, there's going to be just maybe half an inch of that visible, that color. And I think it looks okay beside that T-molding. You're going to see it right up here in front too. When we put the front panel on, there's going to be half an inch or a quarter inch of that iron frost paint showing right there on the inside of each the left and the right side near the T-molding. But it looks pretty good, I think, beside it. Got that on one side and then got our black on the other side, which is pretty dusty now. I tried to wipe it down, but yeah, I got a lot of dust out there using the router on the top of the cabinet. But all that's done. Feels good to have another hurdle overcame, just like every step along the way. Might go ahead and put the speaker panel in here tomorrow when I get off work, but it's pretty late tonight. It's about almost 1 o'clock in the morning. I gotta get up out of bed by 6 and get ready for work, so I'm gonna say goodnight to you guys. Take it easy.